What's up, card fighters? So I wanted to go over my latest deck that I've just been like hammering my locals with. Like hammering in terms of I haven't dropped a game yet every time I play this deck. And I just wanted to I wanted to put this profile out there and basically say like, hey, this is a deck that can potentially win worlds. Like that's probably what I'm going to title the video. Like you will see this version of Youthberg at worlds because it is just very disgusting. It feels like very like high rolly / sacky at times just because of this card. Basically like negating all their PGs, negating all their normal units that don't, that they have extra shield, and they have that extra shield value that they're not able to use because of Decisive Axe Dragon's ability, which is if you rode this turn by card ability, when Decisive Axe Dragon attacks, they can't guard with normal units from hand. So that means that they have to just use zeros for Decisive Axe Dragon's swing, which means you either want to swing just enough to whereas they have to overguard, or you want to swing too much to whereas they have to like either take the hit or just like guard with like 2 to 3 to 4 cards from hand just for his attack. So that's just basically like the main focus of the deck, and what I built the deck around was to just resolve Decisive Axe Dragon until my opponent's dead, which usually happens by like if I sack like by like turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. But like this deck is just like it gains so much advantage, and just like having Decisive Axe Dragon, which shoutouts to my friend David, he called this card Dad, which makes so much sense. Like I'm gonna call this card Dad from now on because his name is Decisive Axe Dragon, acronym Dad. But let's get into the profile. There's really not much to say here. Youthberg Ride Line, it just gives you the most consistency in seeing your REVOL forms, which I do. I run the good ones. I don't run Zest. I thought about running Zest, and then I thought about running Zest as like a win condition, but then I just like trying to resolve Dad as a win condition is just way better. So yeah, let's get into the main deck. Let's put these here for now and just get into the REVOL forms. 4 of Tempest. This just combo Tempest and Gust. They both work very well with Decisive Axe Dragon Dad, for the sole reason of Tempest gives a 5k to the front row, which means if you have a 10k, which is very easy behind Dad, that's 23, becomes 28, becomes 38 with Persona Ride. And you're obviously going to stack any triggers. If they guard your Vanguard, you're going to stack any triggers and any criticals onto Dad and just say, hey, do you have enough to guard this? Because this is more often not going to be lethal. So 4 copies of Tempest. It just works very well. Very like, a +2 every time you, +2 to hand. And, 5k to the front. Really not much to say here. This is like just like the best card in the deck. And then we're going to go into 4 copies of Gust. This card, in combination with Dad, just makes your first grade 3 turn, if you are going second, so pressuring. Especially if you've seen my match videos with this deck, which if you haven't, you should check them out. When I check the OT, and I am on Dust, and I have 2 Dads on board, that's 8 drive checks in 1 turn. When Bastion checks the OT, they can't get 8 drive checks in 1 turn unless they have the guy that gives himself drive checks. They can't do 8 drive checks in 1 turn. This deck can do 8 drive checks in 1 turn for the Keter OT. Like, this card makes running the Keter OT actually worth it, and actually be like when you resolve the Keter OT, it's actually like, do you have the Blitz Order PG? If not, you're most likely dead this turn. So on to the rest of your Youthbirds or Youthberks. 3 copies of Persona Ride. This deck is very reliant on the Persona Ride. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, but you have so many like you could search your Persona Ride off your Ride line. You could search your Persona Ride off of Cabaret. Like, you have like so many ways to search Persona Ride, or like just naturally draw into Persona Ride through your drive checks through Tempest, that you're more often not at least gonna resolve 1 Persona Ride per game, and that's more often not like just in the Persona Rides you need. Like, if you Persona Ride once or twice per game, more often not, the game's yours. And then for the final grade 3, I know this is like a lot of, hold on, let me put homeboy right over here. I know this is like a lot of grade 3s, but like I said, like I want to have at least 1 or ideally 2 of Decisive Axe Dragon on board. Like I said, the reason I didn't like earlier builds of Youthberg is because it felt like the deck didn't have a win condition outside of like just plussing, making good numbers, hitting a front trigger, hitting a key trigger here and there, and just making like really good numbers with Persona Ride. Like, I felt like that wasn't a good enough win condition, and that's why, you know, I always just seem to like beat it with like my tier 2 or tier 3 decks. Like, I haven't dropped a game against Youthberg with Eugene. Granted, like it's like a good matchup because Youthberg really doesn't like its stuff being messed with in like mass droves. But, you know, just having this as like a win con, saying like, hey, if I just happen to stack this guy up with enough power and enough criticals, you're forced out of the game because you can't PG this. Like, the more often than not, the only outs to this card is if you stack it high enough is OT or the Blitz Order PG, which they only have 1 of each of those. So like, if I don't get you this turn, more often than not, I decimated your hand so much to whereas the next turn I don't have to do much, and it's gonna be enough to kill you. But that's it for the cards that we run without shield. I know it's a lot. It is let's see here, because just the Youthbergs is 11. It's 14. I know it's a lot. But, like I said, this is just, like, the win condition of the deck, and I've never felt like to whereas, like, naturally, your grade 3s are always gonna, like, quote-unquote, clog in your hand, but I never felt like, damn, like, oh, man, like, this is really bad, because, like, more often than not, I can ditch this off the ride line and then get it back later. Or, like, more often than not, like, any excess grade 3s, I could just ditch off Skyfall and then create a board, or just get another REVOL form. So it never felt like too many grade 3s. I take it with the grain of salt. I also take with Gravidia, is because you run a lot of cards without shield in Gravidia. You run like 14 to 18, and like this pluses just as much, if not more, than Gravidia. So it's fine. Like, more often than not, you're gonna have excess amount of shield, excess amount of PGs in hand, just because of like how easy it is to farm hand in this deck. But on to the rest of our we're going on to the grade 2s. I run 3 copies of Cadbray. I was running 4 in my match videos, but like 4 just clogged, where I would see like 2 in the early game, but I could only resolve 1 because you're gonna Soul Blast 1 off your ride line, and then if you call this turn 2, that's all your soul is gone, so you can't resolve another one. And it did conflict with your grade 1 angel, like a tad in the early game. Like, once you get out of the early game and into like the mid game, when you're like on your second grade 3 turn, like turn 4, then like you have virtually all the soul you want. But the reason that I'm running Cadbray over Schnitzel, the reason I'm not running Schnitzel is because number 1, Cadbray can add order cards to hand, which means you can add your Blitz Order PG, because his wording says if it's a grade 2 or less unit card, call it to rear guard. If not, that card goes to your hand. So it can add the Blitz Order PG. And not only can it add the Blitz Order PG, the one problem this deck has is because you can't call your dads off your Skyfall when you check your top 3, but you can search your dads off your Cadbrays. So this searches your win condition. So this is basically just your extra copies of your Decisive Axe Dragons, dad. So that's the reason why I am running Cadbray, and I more often than not like Cadbray over Schneisel, because technically, no matter what the top 3 is, technically Cadbray never misses. Even if it's a trigger, even if it's a PG, that's still a booster and an attacker at the end of the day, and that's why I like Cadbray personally over Schnitzel. And then I did tech in 1 Maple, because this is what I did. I cut 1 Cadbray for a Maple. I don't really feel like this deck needs Maple, but I guess it's like better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And this deck does hurt to verse retire-ish matchups, so it just helps you build board more easily. Onto our grade 1s. 4 of the Wayward Angel. This card just like, it just combos so well with your Decisive Axe Dragon, your dad, because again, you discard Wayward Angel, you call her to board as a booster in the back row. That by itself, without Persona Ride, without triggers, without Tempest, is a 23k column. A 23k column becomes 33 with Persona Ride, becomes 38 with Tempest, that they can only use what's it called? They can only use triggers on. So that's just very good. And then 4 copies of Sequana. This is just like another card that's mandatory in this deck. Not much to talk about. It gives your it gives Tempests a drive check normally when it wouldn't have a drive check. It gives Gus Twin Drive, which is just like very disgusting. Again, in combination with your dad, your Decisive Axe Dragon, because more often than not, the game plan is to stack him up. If your opponent's at 4 damage or 5 damage, the game plan more often than not is to stack that boy up to whereas they can't guard it. And then 3 copies of the DPG, nothing much to talk there. And then 1 copy of the Blitzorder PG. Again, you could search it. You could search it with Cadbray, which feels like low-key broken. Like, that's why, like, I've just been having so much fun playing this deck, because this is the only tier 1 deck that I've played that actually feels like a tier 1 deck. That it feels like so disgustingly more powerful than all the other tier 1 decks. No, I'm wrong. I do have some Gravidia gameplay that's gonna be up on the channel probably before this video. That Gravidia is the other tier 1 deck. Gravidia is still tier 1. I don't care about Ava. Like, you really don't care about the retire. You're going to beat that matchup off of sheer power unless you don't see Persona Rides. But Gravidia is still like a disgusting deck. Like, this would be the only other tier 1 deck that I would say, like, I would almost argue that this and Gravidia are tier 1, and like all the other decks that people are calling tier 1 are tier 1.5, if you believe in tier 1.5. But that's it for that. And then onto the triggers. We play 8 vanilla crit. This can be any vanillas you want, but they should be vanillas. You don't need the into soul crit. You build too much soul in this deck, to whereas you would just rather have the vanilla, so it makes a good column with your Decisive Axe Dragon, where it makes a good column with your Revol forms if you have to call them down on board. Like, do not be afraid to call down your Revol forms on board, because more often than not, you have an excess amount of Revol forms. Like, sure, it's okay to keep one of each in hand for options, but like, no matter what you do, like, no matter which one you do, you're probably in a really good position. Like, more often than not, if you Persona Road, you go Tempest. If you didn't Persona Road and they're on grade 3, you should go Gust, because Gust is 23 with Twin Drive versus you're just swinging 18. Or it becomes 33 if you discard a Wayward Angel. But yeah, that's generally like the consensus I go by. I know that Solemn Vanguard in his most recent deck profile said that if you don't know which one to go into, just go Tempest. I believe this is false. You shouldn't just auto Tempest. I do believe there is a correct time to go Tempest and there is a correct time to go Gust. Whoa. I got a call. Sorry about that, guys. I'm trying out this lo-fi music in the background just because I do have family members in the household and I didn't want you guys to hear them or, you know, like, sully the video, as I would say. But 4 of regular heals, I don't believe effect heals are viable in this format right now, especially since, like, a lot of the tier 1 decks are, like, not affected by effect heals. So yeah, just 4 regular heals. I really like lost all faith in effect heals. I really don't like them in this format right now. Maybe the new ones will be good enough, but like I highly doubt it. I just think regular heals are just like optimal. 3 fronts. You wanna run fronts over draws. Draws will most definitely deck you out. Like 100% draws will deck you out. You go through your deck so fast. Like, I would almost say it's like Gravidia, to whereas you're guaranteed to see the overtrigger in some shape or form. But yeah, just fronts. The fronts are they just feel so disgusting. On like turns you check a crit, you check a front, or like you check a front in your already stacked board. it feels just like very OP. And you know, like the shield's nice because you run a lot of cards without shield. And then one Keter OT. The Keter OT is just like very nice. You like playing the Keter OT in this deck, like it actually feels worth it because you have, you know, your dad, your Decisive Axe Dragon. It feels worth it because now you have rear guards that have the ability of performing Twin Drive. So, yeah, like this deck is like very good. Like I don't know if this deck still remains like tier 1 or like it loses any power during set 8. I did put up a poll about that, but I don't think it does. I do think like wholeheartedly this version of Youth, hold on, let me pull them out real quick. This version of Youthberg is the best deck in the format, and I don't know if it's strong enough that it needs to get hit, but if I don't lose any games, like, cause I'm still gonna rock this, like, I actually like this deck, like, really, like, a lot, so I'm gonna rock this deck for a while and see, like, how it stacks up against, like, basically everything, and, like, if I don't lose games, this deck might need to get hit, like, they might just have to hit Decisive Axe Dragon because of how strong it is, like, this win condition, this like such a pressuring card, such like a really good card, and it gives the deck a win condition, which like it didn't have. Like besides like big numbers and gaining advantage, deck didn't have a win condition. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. I probably should take that call. But I will be giving out more content in the future. Constant content. That was one of my goals this year. One of my New Year's resolution. Constant content. We're growing. We're growing so fast and so strong, and it's thanks to all of you. Bye.